Welcome to Green is Good, and we have another great show today, and we're thankful for all our listeners out there on SiriusXM, America's Talk channel, for listening to us. Adam Pearson joins us today from the West Coast. He's the founder and executive producer of GreenIsGood Radio. Welcome to Green is Good, Adam Pearson.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, to have a young entrepreneur on the show who started his own radio gig, come on, this is a great joy for us today. And we want you, before we get into what you're doing, all the great work you're doing at GreenIsGood Radio, Adam, can you share with our listeners, how'd you get there? How did you think of starting a radio show focused on sustainability and all the great things that you're covering on your show?
Sure, I'd love to share. So GreenIsGood Radio is all about creating engaging and transformative narratives about the environment, energy, and sustainability. And I have been into radio on my college campus for a while. I started as a freshman here, and now I'm finishing up with my master's at Stanford University. So it's been a long shot of continuous radio for me. I started off doing music. I came in on campus and I thought, I want to do a music show. I think I have good taste in music. And then, that sort of became a music-dominated part of my life for a long time. And independently, I started pursuing environmental engineering and had this whole academic path that was emerging for me. So, long story short, this past summer, I found myself working at an environmental nonprofit. I was working at the National Audubon Society in Washington, D.C.
Good for you.
And at Audubon, some of my work was pretty interesting. I was working on communicating science, so some of the things that people in my research world as a grad student in civil and environmental engineering were working on. Trying to communicate some of these ideas about wind energy to the public. And this is sort of a controversial issue within Audubon. Audubon is a birding group, a lot of Auduboners are birders. So.
Yeah, they've been on our show. They're fascinating folks. The leadership there talks brilliantly about the whole the cycle of birds. It's just fascinating stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. It's really interesting. Sort of topic, wildlife and wind energy, and so I was working on that, and my job was to sort of convey some of the technological facts and benefits of renewable energy to some of the folks on the ground who are out there birding every weekend. And so I found myself, I remember in July, there was this one day I was sitting in the office. It was late in the afternoon. It was kind of rainy, and the air conditioning was on full blast, and it was a long day. And I found myself on the phone with this woman who was in charge of Save Our Allegheny Front Now, which is some sort of organization she was running, which is pretty much anti-wind organization. And I was talking to her, and she mentioned to me, just sort of as an aside, wouldn't it be better if we just built a whole bunch of natural gas plants instead of wind energy plants for the environment? And at this moment, I kind of realized that, okay, natural gas causes a lot more CO2 emissions. We're not getting through to her, or there's some kind of disconnect here. We need to do a better job communicating fundamentally what renewable energy is to the public, or we need to do a better job engaging with the public and making our media communications about science, specifically in energy and environmental topics, more meaningful to people. So I came back to Stanford in the fall after this internship or fellowship.
Sure.
And I decided, I have this tool set available. I know how to use radio. I have all these professors and connections on campus who are very knowledgeable about these topics, and I need to leverage this and do something meaningful. So I got back, I started this radio show, and the rest has been sort of history since September.
Awesome. So September 2012, you started the radio show at Stanford?
So we're at KZSU, which is Stanford's community radio station.
Okay.
And it's run by volunteer staff and by driven students. And so that's where we air our we air live broadcasts of the show every week.
Wow.
But we also put our show available on the web for a podcast. And this is also another interesting reason we decided to go with a live show in some degree, because there's a lot of environmental podcasts out there. There's a lot of good ones out there. There's even another really good one on the Stanford campus that's produced by some other students. But we sort of embraced live radio as a medium as well, because we think that there's not a lot of coverage of these topics.
Right.
And live radio, you hear on NPR or other public radio stations, or you hear talk of economics and political stuff all the time, but you don't hear energy and environmental stories that are really compelling or engaging. So we wanted to embrace the live radio format as well. And so we chose KZSU as sort of a home.
And how has the campus received the program?
So luckily, Stanford's a really open place for new ideas, and they've been very supportive on campus from all over the board. We've recently assembled an advisory board for the organization, which features faculty like Julie Kennedy and some others on campus and off campus. Being on Stanford's campus, surrounded by so many exciting research projects and brilliant students, it's also given us an access to a wealth of story ideas, interview subjects, and student panelists. So it's been a real win-win being around this kind of vibrant academic environment, and we love to support student groups and return the favor. So it's been a very mutually beneficial relationship.
So perfect. So you're in the right incubator for it. You're in with some of the greatest minds with regards to technology and progressive thinking and things of that such. So how's it evolved? How has the show evolved since September of last fall till now? We're in April 2013.
Sure. Well, the obvious one is, as we've gotten bigger and more people have heard about us, the easier it's been to book guests. That's definitely been an advantage.
Right.
But beyond more of like the day-to-day kind of logistical stuff, conceptually, the show's evolved quite a bit. We started with more of the hardcore kind of journalism and reporting, and like I said, originally the goal was to communicate science to the public, but we realized that there's something inherently kind of boring about saying, today there will be 20 megawatts of solar installed and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're just driving around in your car, it's really easy to disengage from that kind of content. So since the fall, we've really shifted gears, and this season, we're in the third season, we're sort of aligned with Stanford's quarter system. We are headlong into telling stories. So now we are shifted the approach, and instead of starting with an interview and then structuring a show around that and conceptually, we're starting with a question. We're asking, okay, what happens when we throw the wrong thing in the recycling bin? What happens if we put a trash wrapper in the recycling bin? And then we have like our producers go out in the field to like a waste management facility and interview people out there, and we get the perspective in the field, and we get these cool sounds. And then we also talk to Stanford students, like, why do you recycle? And then maybe we talk to an extreme Stanford student who doesn't recycle at all, or something like that.
So you platform an issue, and then you build a case for and against, and you let people and that's wonderful. That's really great.
So we try to really we still have the expert perspectives and utilize our faculty resources on campus, but that's just part of the story. It's not the whole story anymore. The whole story is the human story, right? It's how we think about these environmental topics in our day-to-day lives. It's like, why do I care about rare earth mining in Asia? It's because, we all have iPhones, right? How many phones are there? So it's much more easy. It's much easier for people to think, oh, I've got a phone battery, and I never really thought about where that comes from, than it is for us to just launch into this esoteric conversation about mining industry, and that's totally disconnected from our day-to-day life.
For our listeners out there at SiriusXM, America's Talk Channel, we've got Adam Pearson on. He's the young and wonderful and smart founder and executive producer of GreenGrid Radio. And to listen to his great work and see what he's doing, you can go to www.greengridradio.org. Adam, what happens now? Here's the big question when you graduate. Are you taking the show on the road?
No, I'm not taking the show on the road. I think, as I was mentioning, a lot of the resources at Stanford are important. I'm hoping that GreenIsGood Radio will become an institution here in the Bay Area and at Stanford. I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes to set up a sustainable organization and a sustainable structure when I leave. In fact, we're looking to partner with NGOs in the local community to become sort of an arm of an organization. And so let's say we're going to be X's group's weekly podcast or something like that. So I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I don't want to announce anything publicly just yet, but I'd like to say that GreenIsGood Radio will be alive and well in the fall. I've got a good team of students and other volunteers here who are dedicated to the cause, and they're going to do everything they can to keep this going because they're really excited about what we're doing. And I'm quite optimistic that GreenIsGood Radio is going to continue, and you'll be hearing more and more about GreenIsGood Radio in the future.
And we're going to catch up with that later. I'm going to follow up a little bit with you because I want to know what you're going to go on and do then once you leave that. But,
sure.
but so talk about the programs. Like, how do you come up with the ideas to, what's the inspiration for the programs? Like you platformed rare earths. Then you said, okay, how about recycling? For or against? Do you do it? Do you not do it? Why? And, all that other stuff. Where is this coming from? Is it just you and the team just sitting around spitballing, or is it coming from some professors, or how's this inspiration coming about?
That's a great question. I really enjoy the creative process. It's probably the most exciting part about working with my team. At Stanford, the creative process is taught really well, I think, in some of these mechanisms and design processes and mapping some of these things out. I take a lot of classes in the design school here, and I have to say that's been a huge inspiration for me to learn how to brainstorm in an effective way with other people. And it's all about putting out a lot of ideas as quickly as possible and generating a lot of ideas.
Right.
So that's like mechanically why and how we come up with the ideas. In terms of topics, there's just so much going on in the world. Stanford is such an exciting place as well. The problem we have is we have too many ideas. We can't do them all. Our brainstorming sessions produce whiteboards and pages of fantastic potential episode ideas, and it's testament to my core team of around 4 to 7 people, volunteer staff, other students, and we all just bring a different perspective to the show. I'm an engineer. I've got some management scientists on my team, management scientists here at Stanford.
Right.
Sort of like a more business perspective, and then we have like some traditional earth systems or bio people here, and so we all bring a different perspective, and I would say just like being in the environment that we're in on campus, sort of being hooked into our own interesting environmental niches, and the structure through which we brainstorm has really been the way we've produced our show ideas.
What's so first of all, you're at Stanford, so that goes without saying you're a super smart human being, and you're surrounded by other super smart colleagues over there and students. So what's the most...
In theory, right?
Yeah, in theory, it should be that way. Come on. What's the most surprising thing, or what's the most interesting thing you've learned from one of the guests on your show?
So, yeah, the guests are great, and there's always something new to discover.
Sure.
We had this guest a while back. We just aired the episode recently, though. His name is Andy Andy Rubin. He started Yertle. Andy Rubin was the former chief sustainability officer at Walmart, and he gave up his job to create a new company, Yertle. And Yertle is a part of the sharing economy, and we had a whole episode on the sharing economy. So this is sort of an example of how interesting and weird our topics can be, too. The sharing economy or collaborative consumption is all about using the resources we have in a social and creative way so that we're not just like producing more stuff on the planet and for environmental reasons, for social reasons, for economic reasons. And anyway, what was so interesting and inspiring was hearing him talk about why he gave up his old job. It was mainly encouraging the purchasing of stuff like plastic forks at Walmart, and that just sort of got to him. And then hearing again about his passion for his new company was inspiring. Another really terrific guests that I learned a lot from. There are a couple guests here in the Stanford psychology department. I learned a lot about video games. We had this whole episode about how video games have this potential to really do a lot of social good. So video games, there's some staggering statistics out there. Like when the new Call of Duty game came out, in 1 week there were, I guess, like so many million hours of gaming spent on that it surpassed all of the hours in the history of creating Wikipedia, editing it and modifying it and so on. So within 1 week, Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty, worldwide surpassed the hours spent on Wikipedia, which is pretty mind-blowing. So if you think about how we can tap into those gamers and instead have them blowing each other's brains out, you have them maybe like playing a puzzle or something that will fold proteins. Folded is a good example of social good. So we can imagine that these gamers can be doing environmental games or playing a game where they're turning the lights off in their home, which will have really radical impacts on human behavior. So things like this, these are the things that excite me, and these are the things that I don't think about in my hardcore engineering degree.
No kidding. So, wow. I mean, that's amazing. That whole gaming story just knocked me off my seat. I got to tell you that. How many listeners do you have, and do you have a database of your listeners? How do you connect with them? Is it all through social media, which your generation is really into, or is it through mailing lists, or is it through just the students' body at Stanford? Or to talk a little bit about your engagement with your listeners out there. Sure.
Well, we obviously always want to hear more from our listeners to get feedback on how we can improve the show and everything. Yeah. We've just sort of set up a mailing list. We've realized that it's about time to do that because, we have lots of exciting things to report and new episodes and everything. At the same time, we try not to spam people. So our listeners can sign up for our email list on our website at greengridradio.org. We have an aggressive. We tweet a bit. We have a Facebook. We have a lot of the typical social media outlets. Right. But primarily that's our primary mechanism of keeping in touch with folks. On campus, we have an email list, and we try to stay in email contact with a lot of the other key people on campus when it comes to promoting environmental and sustainability related issues. So we are. So the answer to the question is we're pretty aggressive on social media. In terms of listenership, what's sort of surprising to me, and I don't know how much this is going to be a secret or whatever about the radio industry, is that you never really know terrestrially on an FM station how many people are listening. Right. It's kind of an exciting thing too, right. Because it's like I've done shows from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. and you get a caller at 4:15 and you're like, good God, I can't believe someone's listening right now. and so it's exciting in a way. So we don't have a really good idea. Right. There's lots of ways you can pay for the service to get a good idea, but our listenership has been increasing over time, and we have a good handle on how our podcast listenership has gone up, and it's been a pretty steady climb over the year. I think our most exciting statistics are that our views on our website have tripled over 4 or 5 months that we were monitoring them. So lots of good news there.
That's great. And I'm going to give a little piece of good news. We're down to the last 30 seconds here, so I just want to give a shout out here for some more good news, and I want to offer congratulations to you and your staff. Adam, you guys also were honored by the Clinton Global Initiative, which is a huge honor to be involved with them. It's a great organization, and you should be so proud of not only yourself but your colleagues and what you're doing with Green Grid Radio over there. And I want our listeners out there to get more engaged and access to this kind of great radio and this kind of great product that Adam's putting out there with his team. You got to go to Green Grid Radio. I've been on the website numerous times and been looking at it. Adam Pearson, you are a wonderful ambassador for promise and hope of our next generation, and truly living proof that green is good.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure.